Good morning, everyone. I'm Maya Luria with TMC for Seniors, and I have Donna here with us. Donna is a chef, and actually, if you've been around in Tucson long enough, you may know her from Cafe Terracotta Days, or she also had a cookbook. So her cookbook was entitled Contemporary Southwest. And she still does cooking classes today. And today she's here. She's going to be sharing with us all about rotisserie chicken and what you can do at home to make some simple meals. So I know she's got sort of the life of the rotisserie chicken. So welcome, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you, Maya. As she said, I'm Donna Nordin, and I'm here today to take you through the life of a rotisserie chicken. Many of us succumb to Costco's chickens quite often. And when you first bring the bird home, it smells so good and it's so juicy that that's the first meal that you should enjoy out of your plump, juicy bird. The first meal would be to choose whatever portion of the chicken that you enjoy and eat it that way, along with a little side dish of vegetables or salad or whatever. But then after that, you've got all this chicken, especially if you live alone or if there are only two of you, then you have a lot of chicken left over. So let me just show you one little thing about carving the bird off the carcass, which I've already done, but here's the carcass. One of the things that I like to do, because I like the wing, some people don't, but I particularly like the wing, but it doesn't have much meat. So when I carve it off the carcass, I usually take the wing, I've got it cut here so you can see, and I just carved a little tiny sliver of the breast along with it. So therefore you have a perfect amount for a portion for a meal. And then, of course, some people like the leg, some people like the thigh, a lot of people like the breast, but it just depends on your preference. And so you can cut the leg separate from the thigh, that sort of thing. And once I do that, then, and I just don't want to leave this bird in big pieces like that. Maybe I want to get it ready for other dishes. So the first dish that I would think would be nice to do as a second step for a meal is to take the breast, and I've got another one here. Take the breast, and you can either bone it totally off the bone, or you can leave it on the bone. And for a heart-healthy option, you really do need to take the skin off. Some people enjoy the skin, so go ahead if you are not trying to be on the heart-healthy side, or you don't need to be. So we're going to take a breast like that, and I'm going to show you in a minute a sauce that you can use on this chicken, or you can use it on fish, you can use it on pork, you can use it on almost anything, on pasta, although I'm going to do something else with pasta today. So then you take the rest of the chicken, like so. I've separated out another chicken, and you just cut some of it, whether it's the dark meat or the white meat, and cut it into little cubes to be used. And then when you're picking the carcass, you'll have be stored for a while in the refrigerator, just for a few days if you want to eat it then, or if you're not going to eat it then, wrap it tightly and freeze it for another date. Okay, and then eventually we'll come down to using the carcass totally. So I'll just set that out of the way. And okay, so that's your bird. Excuse me. And now I'm going to show you a sauce called sauce Basquez. Basquez means Basque, from the Basque region in the southern part of France, right next to Spain, the border of Spain. And it is, like I say, a delicious sauce, certainly easy to make. And I'm going to show you a few little tips. And I use some smoked paprika, but regular paprika, sweet paprika, any paprika will do, but this one just happens to be a little bit slightly different. So the first step is to have a red bell pepper. You're going to get a recipe for this later on, and nothing has to be perfectly cut. This is all a coarse chop type of sauce that you're eventually going to cook for 45 minutes and then puree it. So the garlic only has to be peeled like so. And the bell pepper, the easiest way to cut and open a bell pepper is to cut both ends off and then cut through one spot and then just roll the pepper around, taking out the veins, and all the seeds will just stay intact. And you can either compost it or toss it, and then take out just the stem. All the rest of it is usable. So we just have to cut this in very coarse pieces. No real exactness needed here. And this is very easy to do quickly, and it's quick to do. And in a pot, you want to have a little bit of olive oil, and we'll turn the heat on that in a minute. Okay, so just you got first your garlic, your bell pepper, and then we need some onion. So I have to always give an onion cutting lesson in my classes. Almost every single class gets an onion cutting lesson. So this end, this fuzzy end, holds everything together. So when you cut an onion, you want to take off the opposite end, and then you have a flat surface to cut it in half through the root. Leave the root on, then go ahead and peel it. See if I can peel it with these gloves on. And I don't usually wear gloves in my own kitchen, but the fact is that the chicken is a little bit slippery if I have to be using my hands. It makes it easier. And so now you have, and so since I'm doing a half a batch, you'll see that as Maya gets you the recipe later, this is a half a batch, so I only need half the onion right now. The other half of the onion I'm going to use later in our soup stock, okay? So that you don't waste anything. So again, I'm not trying to make tiny dice. I'm going to make a coarse chop. And so you do cross cuts. And remember, this holds it together, so don't take that. And plus, it helps to hold on to it. And then you can use flying fingers to do a little horizontal cuts, and then go back. And if I want to do it smaller, I do all the cuts a little smaller. But this is a very coarsely chopped start for a sauce. Okay, so that goes in like so into a bowl so we can get it to the stove. Okay, and let's see, let me put the onion over here. We're going to use it. So here I am. Start on the stove. Because remember, this is going to be pureed, and by the time it cooks for 45 minutes. And then, yes, this little trick, if you have the little hole in the middle of the handle, at the end of the handle there, you can go ahead and tuck your spoon there so it doesn't have to go on a spoon rest, and should drip back in. So that just needs to saute for a little bit. And then, while that's sauteing, we want to get the rest of the ingredients ready. And always, this is when I do my classes, my cooking classes, not only do you always seem to get a onion cutting lesson, you also get a little bit of a mise en place lesson. And mise en place means put in place in French. So it means to measure everything out, all your little ingredients, measure it out ahead of time, get it organized, and then when you go back, you only have to follow the instructions. So, handy little gadget. I call it a tomato shark. or core. Takes the core out easily. And again, just a rough chop. Okay, don't worry yourself over trying to cut any simple dice. Just chop. Okay, so you just chop them in coarse pieces. And also, what's going to be added will be some parsley, little parsley, a little oregano, and some thyme, a few branches of thyme and oregano. And I'm using fresh. If you don't have fresh, just use, probably in this recipe, you don't only need to use about a teaspoon of each, and that will give it plenty of flavor. And okay, so once the onions start to soften, just a little bit, you can hear it sizzling, I suppose, and let that just go for a little bit of time. Pop this in. And then we'll be ready. Now I put the salt in here, and I put the paprika. And this one is a Penze's paprika smoked Spanish style. So, all right, Basque country's right next to Spain, so it's part of that area. So that's the one I use, but there's so many different paprikas. You can experiment with any of the ones that you have in your cupboard, or if you don't have any, pick something, find something. Okay, so the onions and the bell pepper are softened. Then we add in the tomatoes, the seasoning, and it's called a bouquet garni when you put in herbs to a dish, a braising dish or anything like that. They call it a bouquet garni. Sometimes it's tied up and dropped in and then taken out later. In this case, we put all the herbs in and let them stay in there because we're going to puree them later. And if there's any stems, you can always pick them out. Okay, so all right. So now that the tomatoes are in there, you add a little bit of water. A little bit of water. Forgot to get my little lid out. Bring it to a boil. Cover it. And put it on a very, very, very gentle simmer. Okay? And with the whole recipe that you'll get, as I say, it makes quite a bit, a few cups, maybe 3-4 cups, and you can put it in small containers and freeze it, or use it over a week's time before you need to freeze it, and it's good, like I say, on everything. All right. So just let that gently simmer. And in the meantime, we want to start another dish. Well, actually, we can finish this dish. We can go ahead and finish it because I already did a batch ahead of time. So I use my old-fashioned blender that I've had since 1964, and it's still working well. But whatever blender you have, or if you have a processor instead, that's just fine. And let me make sure it's on here. And so here's the mixture. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Yeah. So the mixture has been cooked for the 45 minutes. It's all really soft. And so now we're just going to put it into the blender. Try not to make such a mess. Hard not to make a mess in the kitchen. That's what kitchens are for, to make a mess. especially if you decide to make fresh pasta. I suggest that if you ever try that, the first thing on the list is to dust your floor with flour before you get started, because it's going to be covered with flour later. Okay, so here we go. Okay. And then you should taste this just to make sure there's nothing should go to your table or to your guests or to yourself without tasting it. And because the bell peppers are so sweet, you might want to add a little extra salt. But then again, it depends on whether you're trying to be heart healthy or if you know, you're allowed very much salt. Many people are on a low salt diet, so that's perfectly understandable. Okay, so this sauce, you heat it up, of course. Everything should be nice and warm. And then this sauce goes over top. And if you have a little bit of asparagus or something to put along the side, that's fine. And then, of course, it might be nice to give it a little bit of a garnish with a little bit of chopped parsley, which we're going to use also later on. Or cilantro, if you prefer. You could use cilantro. Here we are in the Southwest, so if you want to use some cilantro, then go ahead. Be my guest. First of all, you need to learn to be a little bit creative in the kitchen so that nothing goes to waste. My husband is always saying, "What are you having for lunch?" And I said, "Leftovers, whatever I had the night before, probably," because I just can't stand to waste food. So anyway, that's the second meal. You want to first eat it right out of the box. Second meal, add some spice to it, some little bit of garnish, and go from there.
Donna?
And
Donna?
So then the next thing you want to use would be the shredded or the chopped or those kinds of pieces. And I've got some rigatoni here that I boiled till it's al dente, of course, like so. And this is probably, depending on how much you eat, you might be able to eat this much as a whole meal, but maybe it'll be 2 meals for two people.
We have a question from the audience. Will you hold up the chicken dish you just made so that we can see it?
Oh, yes.
And maybe hold a little closer to you there.
Yeah.
This.
Donna, I had a question about chicken and how long can you actually freeze it for?
How long is the chicken good for?
Oh, the chicken itself, how long is it good for? Yeah, I usually would like to eat, if I'm not going to freeze some of the parts, then I'd like to eat it within about 3 days.
And what if you do freeze the chicken? How long can you freeze chicken for?
What did you say?
How long can you freeze the chicken for?
Oh, you can freeze the chicken for, it's probably best to eat it within a couple of months, but definitely. I mean, sometimes my freezer gets overstocked with little bits and pieces, but at some point, and just be sure to, you technically you should wrap it really well. I wrap it in plastic, and then I put it in a baggie, and then I mark it, and technically you should date it. And within a couple of months, you should use it. And just
Great.
bring it back out to the fridge to thaw. And then you are set to go.
Thank
Okay?
you.
So back to the pasta, okay? So I've just boiled this al dente. And since it's not very colorful, and since peas are coming into season, and as you know, the best peas to buy are frozen peas. There was just an article in the new Food and Wine, I believe it is, on the last page about how good frozen peas are because you never can get enough of them, it seems, at the right time, season-wise, fresh, to use them, and they flash freeze them immediately, as they do with like fish on the boats and stuff. So not only did I just read it the other day, but if anybody remembers Gourmet Magazine and Ruth Reichel, when she took it over, there was a giant article on how fresh peas are really the way to go. So I like using peas in this form. I like to use a little lemon zest. This just happens to be a very small homegrown Meyer lemon. And right now, some of you may have lemon in your backyard. So use some lemon zest. And let's see. This just happens to be a small grater, but you can use any grater that you have in your kitchen. Let's get out as much of the lemon zest as you can. And then some Parmesan. Now, I don't think any pasta would be very authentic unless you had some garlic. And if you want to crush garlic, I have a nice garlic press, and it crushes it very easily. But also, I found this granulated garlic powder from Penzeys is really good. Some of the really commercial garlic powders I'm not that fond of, but I do like this. So this one. So you can do that. Use a little salt and pepper. Sprinkle with a little salt. I'm going to put some parsley in there. Again, this is going to be a green and white pasta. Okay. And there we go. Just mix it up a bit, and I'll get the parsley in it, and olive oil. You want to coat it with a good coating of olive oil. I go through a lot of olive oil, so I buy the larger extra virgin olive oil at Costco. Okay, so again, some fresh parsley. This parsley has grown very, very fast lately in the back pot, in the backyard. I have a little pot, and I thought, oh my goodness, my other parsley was dying, so I got a new one, and this one has just grown so fast, it's hard to use it up. So, okay, that goes in. And you can add whatever else you want. If you wanted to add some little cherry tomatoes, that would be good, give you a little red. But mostly you want the olive oil and the lemon. If it's not lemony enough, add a little lemon juice. And the Parmesan is really the final. Why not? Why not? Use it all. Okay? And this will be your next meal. Okay? So, there you go. Okay, second meal. Well, actually, your third meal. First, juicy from the box, then with a sauce of some sort, and that's a quick sauce, easy to make and use for other things, and then a pasta dish, and then we need to put in, well, let's see. Do we want to put in the shredded chicken or the cube chicken? Either way. Either way. How about if we put in some of the shredded chicken? This is just what I picked off the carcass. Okay? So this is where you're going to get your protein in this dish. Okay? We'll do that last little tidbit. Toss that around a bit. Get some of the Parmesan on it. So that's really more the final dish once you have the chicken in it. Okay? All right. Then, let's see. Next we want to do a salad. Now I'm throwing out some of these stems from the parsley, but I have to tell you, in salads, it's really nice if once in a while you put a few leaves of your parsley in it, or some of your herbs, something that's kind of fluffy. You can do that. I just thought about that, but I just chopped all of what I had. All right, So for the salad, I have some lettuce, your choice. I like the crunchy part of the romaine best. Then for the chicken, let's see, the cubes. Let's do cubes of chicken for the salad. And some corn. This is something you all should have in your freezer from Trader Joe's. Roasted corn. It's used in calabasitas, and you can use it so many different ways. Eat it this way, heat it up, doctor it up with some onion or what have you. But this is really a godsend from Trader Joe's. There are a lot of things there that I like to use, but this is the roasted corn, and it's perfect for adding to many dishes. Okay, so a little corn, some black beans, and rinse them. You need to rinse the canned black beans. Rinse them so that they don't turn the whole salad black or gray in the end. So that goes in, and let's see. Oh, let's have a little bit of tomato on here again. I used a Roma tomato in my sauce, but this happens to be a tomato on the vine that I picked for the salad. And so for that, we just are going to do little wedges. Oop, there we go. And that goes in. And we toss a little bit more. Well, did I run out of all my cubes? Okay, we can always make a few more cubes if we need it. Okay, just pull the skin back, take a little chunk. Cubes. This is the breast. And that goes in. And a little bit more corn on the top. And then a dressing. You can use a dressing that you like, any type that you're used to using, or my recipe is just lemon, olive oil, garlic, a little bit of Dijon mustard. And I have a little container that I use to make enough to last for at least a week, maybe a little longer, but this is it. And then you just drizzle that. Okay. And that's that dish. Put this back over. We're also getting to the end of what we need here. Okay. So this is your salad. And you can toss it. The lettuce is underneath. Oh, actually, if this is enough for you to have a one whole meal, then you can eat it right out of the bowl. Okay? All right. Now then, oh, there's only a little bit of this left, not to be wasted. Okay. So let's see where we go from here. I think we're at the stage of the carcass. So back to the carcass. And I had picked this carcass and put on the plate. There was another carcass that I also picked to put on the plate. That was the one I showed you, the bird, in the first place. But there's still some on this. But this is how, one of the reasons it's good to have some gloves. But actually, the fat that comes along with doing this with your bare hands is good for your hands. So just pick as much as you can. Don't forget back here, these little pieces that are called the oysters, right here. This is the tastiest part of the chicken when you bring it home. I usually confiscate that right away. And then just pick until the bones, you can pull apart about the bones. It gets very tactile. A little bit on the leftover end of that. And so the skin, you don't need the skin. So throw out the skin. It'll just make it a little bit greasy. And if you're trying for heart healthy especially, then you don't want all that extra chicken fat. Okay. So just this is how I end up. And then, you know, there's a lot of other things to use shredded chicken for. You can make tacos, but I just suggest you take the parts apart in the beginning after you've had your first meal, and then decide whether you want to freeze some of it to use for later, because maybe you get tired of eating chicken 5 days in a row. Most people would, and because variety is the spice of life. And that's it. That's what I did to get all that other chicken off the other carcass. And this carcass, then, this carcass goes right into the pot with the other one. Any of the bones. There may still be some little bits of meat in the end, but by the time you make this stock, soup stock, it won't be very good to eat. So try to get as much of the shredded chicken off as you can. And to make this stock even better, you need some what we call aromatics. And you want to put in some onion, and this is where I'm going to use that other half. And I don't even really have to peel it because I'm going to be taking it out. Or, you know, some people do leave them in, leave the vegetables in, but they get a little bit soft and not as delicious if you leave them in to eat them. But onion, some carrot goes in, parsley, throw in some garlic. Throw in some garlic. Doesn't even have to be peeled because it's going to be cooking for an hour to an hour and a half. Now, if this was a fresh chicken, you would end up cooking it for 2 hours. Whenever you're making stock, if it's beef stock, beef bones, you cook for a long time, 3 hours, 4 hours, depending on the quantity. Chicken stock, raw chicken stock, you would cook for about 2 hours. And since this has already been cooked, you probably will get all the flavor out of it in an hour or a little over. And then fish, if you're making fish stock, the bones fall apart very easily, and you cook that for only half an hour. Half an hour for fish stock, or else it gets bitter as the bones disintegrate. Okay, and it gets water. Bring it over to the stove. Put your water in. Cover it with water. Put it on. Put the heat on. Bring it to a boil, and then simmer it very, very gently. And then you have soup. And you can add anything you want to the soup. You add some more chicken, add back some chicken, add in some little vermicelli noodles if you want to make chicken noodle soup, or add other vegetables, even zucchini at the end, once you have your stock. So, any more questions? That's really the life.
So we do have one question from the audience.
Uh-huh.
So chicken, is it really that heart healthy for you? You're talking about chicken and
Oh,
you're talking about heart healthy chicken?
Heart healthy. As long as you don't eat the skin. That's basically the part that's not healthy. So, because of the fat. But once you have it cooked and skin removed, you've got chicken, very heart healthy chicken. And anyway, and if there's any other questions?
Let's just look at your food one more time. Tell us what each dish is.
Yes. Here you go. This is the pasta, peas, parsley, lemon zest, olive oil, Parmesan, parsley. Did I say that? I did. Yeah. This is the one with the Basque sauce that you cook for 45 minutes, all the vegetables, and then puree it. And this is your salad. There is some lettuce under there with black beans, corn, roasted corn is nice, tomato, a little lemon and olive oil dressing, and you know, you could add, what else could you add? You could even put Parmesan on that. Okay, and then then you have stock once you make your soup base. Okay, so this is this is really the extent, and I wanted to do one little thing that you probably have heard before from Julia Child. Bon appetit.